Hello and welcome to Mindscapes, our series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is one of India's most distinguished dancers. Not only has she maintained and honored an ancient tradition, but she has revitalized it with contemporary nuances and bringing to bear a unique and rare synthesis of different art forms. She performs as both a dancer and a singer. I'm delighted to welcome Umaji.
Namaskar.
You have been very remarkable in this process of synthesis of your talents as a singer and a performer, and the Kathak form that you embody in some senses in India really is derived from the whole notion of katha, of telling a story, and dance has had the nuance of telling a story through physical expression. What are the advantages? Does sort of the articulation, the verbal articulation, you feel in some way diminishes the purity of the form by verbalizing it, or in what ways does it enhance it?
Well, actually, Kathak, I must say, is more of eyes expressions. And that's what I learned from my guru, Shambhu Maharajji. And actually, it is something so beautiful that you can just express whatever sort of idea you get, and you get going with it. And I feel like doing it because you don't change the form. You pick up a topic and you just keep it within the framework of Kathak. And it has to be, of course, eye expressions, it's a wonderful art as far as Kathak is concerned. And Thumri Bhav, like, for example. But as I see now that the form is really gradually changing, which I feel sometimes of course, people, they say that it's just an experiment. Though you like to have an experiment, but still, I feel the Kathak should remain, I believe in traditional Kathak. And that's what I like, that Kathak has to be like that only.
But yet you have sort of worked with using contemporary poets and writers, with Harvind Rai Bachchanji's work, with Tagore, with a whole range of people, with Dalit. And so in that sense you are making it contemporary, using a traditional style but a contemporary articulation.
Contemporary topics. For example, I did ballet, Stri, which was, idea came to Aruna Vasudeva, a friend of mine. And we were just sitting and talking that let's do something on women. And it was an idea completely which is now today is needed for a sort of a women, they are having number of problems. So I decided to have this ballet Stri. And of course contemporary poets like, as you are saying, Harvind Rai Bachchan, Kaifi Azmi, for that matter. I picked up a very difficult poem of his, Saap. And Saap was, when I thought he's going to deal about the snake, but no. The idea was completely what we are suffering with that problem, the very thoughts. The Saap goes to Girjaghar and then to temple and then to Gurdwara and all these places. So what poet is trying to say is that this very thought is like a snake. The day ye kuchla jayega, if you squeeze it, it will die. This very thought, the thought that making the whole situation difficult, will become very easy and everyone will be at peace and all that.
Well, this performance, I should just add, this dance was really described as the first, or amongst the first, feminist compositions, as it were, performances that brought in a very contemporary discourse in this. Do you consider yourself a feminist?
I am. Actually, I am like that. I keep my thoughts very much as I was doing the choreography for Stri. When she told me, Aruna, when she told me that, Uma, woman is born and she is doing everything for men, and yet she is disturbed, and she's gone into a parda system, and you know, all these kind of things, and she dresses up beautifully. Sita was still, she had to leave Ram after so many years. So all these things, but yet she's like a Durga. So, you know, of course, probably every woman will be like that. But if you are really tortured, then one has to become like that. But if you are not, then unnecessarily sort of you don't have to exaggerate things. So because so many times one has seen that unnecessarily one is blamed. And I keep seeing that many men, they are tortured by women and they can't complain because it's a women time and women law, all that. But I am quite flexible that I go very deep into it. I try and observe everything. And when I observe there is a mistake, I realize it. But if there is no mistake, then I become like a Durga.
Have you felt that you know, life has been easier or more difficult for you because you have been a woman?
Well, yes, single woman has to face lot of difficulties, and sometimes you really feel that you are lost and you are helpless. But then you have to bring the courage, somehow force the courage to come into you, and you have to face, you have to deal with the situation. Well, I have suffered quite a lot because in the beginning when I was dancing, of course it was quite a hard work. I was really working hard on myself to do practice hours and hours, and I was learning from two different gharanas, gurus, say for Jaipur to Lucknow, Lucknow to Jaipur, and if they would quarrel take place between two gurus, Uma Sharma was in difficulty. The Lucknow Gharana Guru would say, you just go and learn, then don't come to me. Then the Jaipur Gharana would tell me, don't go and don't come to me. So that was one phase. But somehow that I managed, and I kept the peace alive, and I tried my level best to keep both the Gharanas and the Gurus very much together. That phase was over. Then my career started. A lot of jealousy came up because my only fault was that when Uma would go on the stage, luckily, unluckily, I was always praised. That started becoming my enemy, and too much praise always creates lot of enemies.
Did it ever go to your head, you think?
No, it hasn't, and I don't want it to go into my head because I keep very busy with my creative work. I have no time.
So what has helped you keep your feet on the ground when you have so much praise and adulation and people swooning over you?
I do not know. Somehow that I have got a very down-to-earth nature, which I learnt it from my father and also from some scholars, and particularly I used to sit so many times when I would cry. I really miss P.N. Haksar Saab. He was like my godfather. And if I had any problem, I always used to go, Haksar Saab, can I come? Then he would make me sit down. And both husband wife, Urmila ji, that was his wife, they both sit, and Haksar Saab having cigar and sometime pipe. And then he would tell me, listen to my story. Acha, so how long you are going to cry so that I can tell you something. Then after telling him the problems, then he would say, Uma, one thing remember, and I would rather say it in Hindi, the sentence that he said, कि झंझटों का सामना तो तुम्हें करना ही पड़ेगा, लेकिन अपने आप को कभी जलील मत करना और सच्चाई से सिर उठा के चलना. That principle I had kept from that. At that time he was principal secretary, and I have remained like that. So I have never faced anything kind of a thing within myself that I am too proud of myself or I keep my chin up because I am too much. No, my chin up is to face the problem, and I will keep on facing it. So Uma is surrounded with problems, will always remain surrounded, because after all Durga had to do lot of, Durga was created to face the problems because Devtas couldn't kill, you know. So this deity was created. So it is the same thing. I have to fight and fight and fight, and I will.
But this deity is also wrathful. Are you sometimes wrathful?
Well, sometimes, sometimes I have to, but mostly I'm a peace-loving person. I believe in truth, I believe in sincerity, I believe in hard work, and I'm so busy with my dance that this dance really keeps me alive. When I wake up, I start thinking, this I have to create, that thing I have to create, I must do this, I must do that. So the very thought of that creativity is like a circle around me. I don't get time for anything else, except that then I laugh within myself that my ideas are being taken away as I am planning. Then doesn't matter, I take it.
You also, the whole aspect of Thumri is a very important component of your work. How do you sort of integrate that aspect?
Thumri Bhav is the most difficult side of Kathak. And I still remember when I was learning from my guru, Shambhu Maharaj, many years ago, then he gave me one sher that क्या कहूँ कुछ कहा नहीं जाता, हाय चुप भी रहा नहीं जाता. So we were doing this ballet Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. So it was like many girls were sitting, and Maharaji told me, Uma, now show this. And then he said in Hindi, Dekh, how I do it. Kya kahun? Of course, I can't be master like him. But the glittering eyes spoke so beautifully those words. Kya kahun? I'm sorry, I started singing without your permission.
Absolutely, please. The floor is open.
Kya kahun? Kuch kaha nahi jata. Kya kahun? Kya kahun? Kuch kaha nahi jata. Hai chup, hai chup bhi raha nahi jata. I will take so much time because if I get into that, so this is how he showed me. And this Thumri Bhav has to be, eyes have to speak. When I say, kya kahun, kuch kaha nahi jata, hai chup raha nahi jata. The eyes, they have to play a very major role. And this is exactly was the most difficult side, which he said at that time, this girl is going to do Abhinay. So I got into Abhinay and I started doing this Thumri Bhav.
How much riyaz do you do in terms of singing too?
I hardly do any riyaz for singing because I remember when Naina Devi was alive, the great Thumri singer, she always used to tell me, Uma, you have got such a lovely voice. Please come and learn these Thumris from me. Because you are the one who is going to carry this dying art, Thumri, ga ke bhav batana. But, you know, as I was busy dancing, going, I never realized that Neena ji will leave me so soon. And I just couldn't. Then, when I was a child, my father was not a professional singer, but he was he learnt this music, the classical music, from Pandit Omkar Nath Thakur, just as a shokia like that. So I used to learn from him. But I just got into dance and never did any riyaz for. But I used to copy film songs. Aayega, Aayega. This was the first song I ever sang when I was a child. That was a Mahal song, and which was very popular those days. आएगा आने वाला आएगा आएगा दीपक बगैर कैसे परवाने जल रहे हैं कोई नहीं जलाता और दीप जल. So this was the song I used to sing. So like that I kept learning.
Tell me, sort of artists and performers of your stature have the amazing ability to turn on an emotion, to sort of feel it intensely and to communicate it to thousands of people in an auditorium. You're a small figure of a dancer on a stage and there are thousands of people sitting there and you manage to communicate this. How much of this is really sometimes an impediment in everyday life? Is there confusion sometimes about what you really feel and what you're able to put on as a feeling? The lines must surely get blurred. And how difficult does that make everyday living?
Well, you are absolutely right, because sometimes you are really confused. You do not know how to cope up with that confusion. And sometimes you are just getting very angry within yourself. And then again, you think that this anger will not be good. And sometimes you are just want to do something, you want to be very aggressive, and you are just wanting to go ahead, and you want to deliberately sort of, somebody is trying to provoke you, but you can't do this, you can't do that, and you are helpless. So that's where I sort of talk to myself, within myself, because as a college student, I had a subject, psychology, and I go into that subject. Then I talk to myself and I discuss with people and control my whatever emotions I get. If they are wrong, I control them. If they are right, I don't. I go ahead. And if I find that I'm really making a mistake in this, then Uma comes to herself and she consoles herself and she talks to herself. That's what I do. And I really think, I don't do things in hurry. I never do it, because again I go back that every morning I sit down and read Gita. Only one shlok which comes in front of me is Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phal hetur bhurma te sangostva karmani. And this is one I keep it within myself. I don't do things in. Many people, they told me that you did so much for Ghalib, and in the end you were just taken away from you were not given the credit so much. And you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done the press conference, and so many other complications that I have to face. And people, they tell me, you should have done this, you didn't do this, that's why you are suffering. But I will only believe in God, that there is a God who will look at me, who will look at my sincerity. Let him give me the reward, whatever he has to give me. Let him make me act. I am too much with God. And that's what the sanskar that I got. I was created by my father. And I want to remain in that.
I should explain that the shloka you were referring to is really Krishna telling Arjuna about the fruits of striving for action detached from the fruits of action. What then becomes the impetus for your action? You said that you surrender to God. What form does this God take? Is it the Durga that you talk about?
I believe in Lord Krishna.
Well, you must. I mean, that's the whole tradition that your art derives from.
Well, actually, I am a great believer in Lord Krishna, but Durga is always around me. And that's why I have got a lot of anger within myself. But when I like to get angry, when I see things going wrong, I do get angry.
So
I get very emotional.
What are some of the things that you feel angry about?
Well, if somebody is trying to unnecessarily blame me and put me into great difficulty, that's where I really get angry. And I want to become like Durga. I really want to become like Chandi. But when I see that the time will come when I have to become Durga, I will become.
What are some of the sort of, let's say, larger injustices that you see around you that make you angry?
Well, sometimes, you know, when I deserve something, like when I'm supposed to be taken into a program and I'm not taken, and I feel very sad. Sadness comes in me. For example, number of people I see going out of country, and I'm told, no, I can't go because it's 3 years and 2.5 years or 4 years. And when I do complete it, then again I'm not taken. I don't make any fuss about it. I don't want to, because I'm too above all
But
these
sadness
things.
is different to anger.
No, then sadness, of course, then it goes into anger. I become angry. I do think that why this? This is not that they are trying to do justice to me. Of course, I have given so much of my time in dance, and I have been learning for many years from such great gurus, and still when I go on the stage, people, they give me standing ovation. And recently I danced to the poetry of Neeraj, which was, I never knew that this poetry is really going to be around me. Ki karwan guzar gaya aur ghubar dekhte rahe. And I used the Navarasas, and that night I really, the people, it was overcrowded, because Neeraj himself was sitting on the stage and he was reciting and I was dancing. And I was very much careful that I should not, of course Neeraj is a great poet, but I wanted to remain to the standard of that Neeraj's poetry. And each time when this line came that कारवां गुजर गया गुबार देखते रहे, and each time I gave different expressions. But whenever the anger came, I was really getting angry. But then I controlled. I said, well, this is not the time. You have to change over to other Navarasas. So I controlled myself. So sadness always comes, but then I do get angry.
You have performed with so many great masters. You just mentioned the poet Neeraj. We've performed
Even with Kafi Saab.
Kafi Saab, with Ali Akbar Khan Saab.
Even Harivansh Rai Bachchan
right.
came. When I first did Madhushala, he was there. It was early 70s. He was okay at that time, and he was Teji Bachchan, Harivansh Rai Bachchan, and they were both sitting, and I was doing the 1.5 hour Madhushala. And then he came up on the stage and gave me shabashi, and he said, you are going to grow up and do this, keep doing this.
For someone who's had so many, how do I put it, pinnacles of achievement and moments of enormous fulfillment and satisfaction, we've just been talking about moments of frustration and anger. Surely these moments of fulfillment completely overwhelm the occasional episode, shall I say, or incidents of frustration.
Yes.
And we from the outside, really respond to those pinnacles of achievement that you've happened. What has been the highest one for you?
Well, my highest achievement, of course.
Well, let's say, I sort of use the wrong word. Let's say, the moment of greatest ecstasy, of happiness, of fulfillment. That may not be achievement in the sort of everyday material sense. But let's say where you have felt truly fulfilled.
I know what you are trying to ask me. Actually, I must say that first thing, when I got this Haveli thing, this Ghalib's Haveli got vacated, and I was feeling very happy. The noise that I created is now fulfilled. But the second one was, I was quite surprised when this year I got Padma Bhushan. I was just overwhelmed and so happy. But कहते हैं ना कि too much of happiness gives you sadness also. Well, one has to go through with all ups and downs. But that was really, I was just so happy that I can't describe it, because I wasn't expecting it. I really wasn't expecting it.
Do you want to talk about the sadness that followed?
Well, sadness is that, as I say, that there are certain things happening that I'm blamed unnecessarily, which I'm not supposed to be blamed. Because I've always remained busy with my dance. I've never gone into any sort of try to disturb anybody's life or anybody that I don't get any time to do all this. Because suddenly I find myself, instead of my name appearing as a dancer, I was taken into this FIR business and things like that. I was, again, as I was very happy about my Padma Bhushan, I was very sad about this, because it was again a shock to me. Thing like that, wrong allegations, and which I've never done it in my life. I've always sort of tried to give as much help to others. Anyone comes.
Do you believe fundamentally in the justice and the fairness, the ultimate fairness of life and the processes of life?
I do believe. I do believe in justice, and I think I again go back to God, that He is looking after me, and He will look after me, and He will give the justice to me. I don't blame anybody. It is He I blame, and it is He who is going to give justice to me, and it is He who is looking after me. I believe in that.
Well, Umaji, thank you very much, and we will be applauding you, at least in the more sort of public, visible achievements and triumphs, and